Welcome to Pod Junction, where business meets podcasting. Whether you're on a morning jog, driving to work, whipping up a meal, or just taking a moment for yourself, our weekly bite-sized episodes promise fresh insights from successful podcasters who have cracked the code of using podcasts to grow their business. So whether you're a podcasting newbie or seasoned podcaster, grab your notebooks and get ready.
Well, hello. Welcome to Pod Junction. I'm Edmundson, and beside me is the quintessential Sadaf Beynon. How are we doing?
We're good, thank you.
Yeah?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, good. We seem to be starting the show the same way. Are you sure? Are you good? You sure? Okay. Just want to make sure. And for this recording, you actually took your coat off. You were sat in your coat for the longest time.
I was really hot in the last one. I didn't want to take it off. I didn't want to invite comments from you.
So we've just finished recording because we batch record, as most podcasters do. We batch record. So we've just finished recording the podcast where we had Dennis on from the Leadership is Changing podcast. And if you watch that on YouTube, you will notice Sadaf was sat in a coat for the whole show. And I was like, I was so tempted in the middle of it. Just go, why are you wearing a coat? But then at the end, you took it off. So I thought, well, there goes all my jokes for this one. I'm wearing my gilet. But it's not a coat. It's just, and I'm wearing a t-shirt underneath. Anyway, it's not about what we're wearing.
Just in case we get a heat wave.
Just in case we getting ready. So yeah, welcome to the show where we talk about coats, gilets, and how to use podcasting to grow your own business. That's what we do. So yeah, welcome to the show. It's great that you're here. For those of you who don't know us, we work at Orion Media. Sadaf and I work together. I do a lot of podcasts. You are a podcast producer.
I am.
In this show, you're the other side of the microphone.
I am.
Although you do produce this show as well.
Yes, I do.
Just saying. So like you, we use podcasting to grow our business. And so we've just embarked on a journey of trying to figure it out and crack the code. And we've learned a few things along the way. So yeah, that's what this show's all about, really, figuring it all out. We have great guests come on the show. We talk to them. We ask them all kinds of weird, wonderful questions. And then we see what we can learn from them. So last week was Dennis. Say last week, it was like 5 minutes ago for us. It was last week for you. Such is the wonderfulness of podcasting. I'm letting all the secrets out now, aren't I? People will be listening to, what do you mean you don't record this at the same time every week? I'm slightly disappointed now. Who have we got this week?
We have Adam Pierce from Shopify Across the Pond podcast. He's the host of that. And he's going to be talking about how to use podcasts strategically to grow your business and to foster relationships.
Ooh, strategically. I like that. You know what I am going to do? I'm just going to slightly move this camera because I feel like you're off center. There we go. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. As again, just pointing out, we leave all these kind of little bits in as we get it all right. But Adam Pierce, Shopify Across the Front, a pond. Fellow Brit from Birmingham. No doubt, who's running an agency down there and is using podcast to grow his agency business. So without further ado, here's what Adam's got to say, and then Sadaf and I will be back after this.
Yeah, so when we started, my issue, I guess, as a newer agency was that there are a lot of bigger players in the market, and it was difficult for us to kind of get bigger brands into our kind of, our lead funnel and get to talk to them. And one of the reasons why I started Show Across the Pond, because I wanted the opportunity to go and speak to these bigger brands. And the way I could do that is by inviting, the CEOs, the co-founders, the e-commerce marketing managers from these brands onto a podcast, because that gave me then that opportunity to have that first conversation. And if I'm honest with you, that is still a lot of the drive for us using the podcast as an initial conversation starter for, sales down the line.
Right. So you're, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when it comes to podcasts, there's a number of reasons why people start them. I want to grow a tribe. I want to grow an audience. But for some, you actually are specifically focusing on the guest, and you're using the podcast as a platform to open doors to great guests, which could be potential customers, potential suppliers, and so on and so forth. And so it sounds like you started the podcast with a view to getting in guests who could be potential clients. Have I understood that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think this is, the interesting thing, with podcasts, isn't it? Is, people always typically assume that you're doing the podcast for that listenership. And all that is important, and it's been important to me for things like, gaining sponsorship for podcasts. Actually, the initial objective was, I guess, a little bit more direct from a kind of, this actually for us, I see this as part of our sales funnel, which I think is what other podcasters will do with it as well.
Yeah, totally. It's for me, I often say this to people, I've not come across anything like podcasting as a way to open doors to people. There are very few things that I've been able to use as a tool to get easy access to phenomenal people who could become great clients. I don't know if that's what you found as well.
No, for sure. I mean, I'll give you an example. I am a big fan of an author called Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First, and he's wrote a number of other business books. Now, look, reality, he has a very big following online, particularly, kind of within sort of the business community. And, for me, I wanted to get him on to really, for me, the driver was for that is to actually have that conversation with him. But I knew then that his followers would also be listening. And, if you think about, every day, all of us probably use LinkedIn in some shape or form. We're always getting, kind of pitches for this and buy this thing. There is nothing, I guess, more gratifying or, nice to receive than, hey, I really like what you do. I love to hear my podcast. There's no, it's very rare that you will get someone saying, oh, that sounds like a terrible idea to put me on a platform to allow hundreds of people, thousands of people to listen to me. It's really non-confrontational, and it gets you that initial, foot on the ladder when it comes to the conversation with that person you want to.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you take someone like Mike, then who's quite a well-known author, how straightforward, for want of a better expression, was it to get him to come onto your show?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it was fairly easy. I mean, with him, he basically put me in touch with his personal assistant. She arranged a time in his calendar that worked for him, and I was just asked to basically submit the questions beforehand that I wanted to ask. And those were then just kind of like, sort of vetted by him. There was no request for any changes in that.
If you're intrigued and want to dive deeper into this conversation, check out PodJunction Cohort, where you can listen to the complete interview and much more. Simply visit thepodjunction.com for more information about how to join.
Welcome back from that clip with Adam Pierce from Blend Commerce, who also does the Shopify Across the Pond podcast. What a fascinating conversation that was. Because why I found it particularly fascinating was because Adam and I are quite similar in a lot of ways. We're both involved in e-commerce, and he was using a very similar strategy to me to outreach to clients and get people. So this is why I thought it was fascinating. So what's in your notes, Beynon?
So I thought that it was actually quite cool that he uses the podcast, and he's used the term as, it's quite non-confrontational. Yeah. And it's also very non-traditional as
That's
far
very
as
true.
way of networking. And so how he uses that to what did I write here? And it's actually it's an integral part of his sales funnel, which he also said. So how he pulls two things together like that, I think it's really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, an integral part of his sales funnel. So if you've not come across this strategy before, it's probably worth explaining. We call it the high value client or high value guest strategy, depending on what industry you're in. And what do I mean by that? This is where you identify people who are high value clients. We think typically anybody that's got a lifetime value of more than around $4,000, we would call a high value client, right? And so if you have clients that have a lifetime value more than 4K, then this strategy that Adam uses, that I use, that various people use, is quite an interesting strategy, because what you do is you identify that client and then you go and invite them to come onto the podcast and share their story. And so we use the phrase meaningful connections a lot. It creates these meaningful connections. It's a really interesting way to network, especially if your podcast is interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Because it makes the experience for your high value guest so good that they're like, this is a brilliant thing. And they want to stay connected with you. They love what you're doing. They feel flattered you asked them on the show. And so, yeah, we call this a high value client strategy. And it's one of those things where I think if you aren't doing it yet, you should really have a look at it if you have got high value clients. The high value guest strategy is slightly different in the sense that it doesn't just focus on clients. So I often use the example of a supplier. We needed one of our e-commerce businesses. I went and got them on the podcast, met them. An hour later, I had that supply contract. And so, whereas before it was very difficult to get that. So that's a high value guest strategy. Have I explained that well enough?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So Adam is doing the high value client strategy where he is bringing onto his show, not all the time, but some of the time he's bringing onto the show guests who could be potentially great clients for him as a way to meet them and connect with them.
Yeah.
And it's a very clever strategy.
Something I quite like about that it works even for the smaller fish. Like you don't have to be a big fish to get that exposure. You can be a little fish and still reap the benefits of that.
That's what Adam said, wasn't it, at the start? He was a new agency and he wanted to be able to sort of get his foot in the door with some of the bigger guys and podcasting was a great way for him to do that. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah, really, really interesting. So it's probably worth saying, cheap, shameless plug, that we have a training that which is currently, at the time of recording, it's currently free. I don't know how much longer it's going to be free for. So if you want to find out more about how to do this, do check it out. There'll be a link on thepodjunction.com. We'll make sure there's a link on there, but you can access that free training where we walk you through the high value client strategy in a lot more detail. And there's a workbook that comes along with it that you can work. It gives you email templates and stuff, doesn't it? It's quite comprehensive. And so you can check that out. And if that resonates with you, we've got a course, not yet live, but will be live soon, which will go even deeper into the high value client strategy. So do check that out. Anyway, shameless plug over. What else was on your list?
Read my writing.
I definitely can't read your writing. Well, while you're figuring that out, have you got something?
No, you go.
I was going to say, he talked about the author, Mike.
Yes.
Who wrote, is obviously, I've not actually read the book Profit First. I keep thinking I should probably read that book. But Adam's strategy here shifts slightly. So he's gone from the high value client strategy to the high value guest strategy. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to end up working with Mike, but there was, I don't know if you picked it up, there was something that Mike did in that was really interesting and very, very powerful as a way to grow your podcast. And Adam was very clever here in the sense that he recognized the guy, Mike, the author, had a big social following. So getting him on the podcast, that author then promotes that podcast to his social following.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is one of those other key things that you can do with podcasting where you go, right, I'm going to get people on my show that have high influence and encourage them to come on my show, give them some great assets because they do have to be high quality. Yeah. And invite them to share them, right? Which is something you do.
Yes, that is something we do. Yeah. That's a really good point.
It's a really, really powerful thing you can do. You can, this is where it gets interesting, isn't it? Like, who would you, one of the questions we asked one of our guests, isn't it, on the Push podcast, if you had a podcast, who would come on your show and why? What fascinates me is the answers, right? And so what Adam has done, in effect, has answered that question. He's like, I just want to interview this guy. It'd be really interesting. And again, a podcast gives you the ability to do that. It gives you, it'll be much harder to call him up and go, I'd love an hour of your time, Mike. I've got some I've read your book. I've got some questions. Would you mind? Versus calling him up and going, Mike, I've read your book. Would love to get you on the show. Would you be interested in coming on the podcast? It's a very different ask because he's going to get something out of coming on your podcast. Same conversation at the end of the day. And you're using your podcast to open that door, which is just a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. So yes, he was very clever because Mike had an audience. So again, if you're doing the interview on your interviews on your show, whether it's a full-blown interview like we do on e-commerce podcast or Push, or whether it's like this where you play excerpts from an interview and you have like or whether it's just every now and again you do an interview and you mix it up, whatever it is you do, think through your guests. You know, how can you obviously use them to bring value to your show in a way that makes sense for them, right? So whether it's accessing their audience, their tribe, whether it's connecting with them in some meaningful way, super, super valuable. And the last thing that Adam said, did you pick it up? When I said to him, how difficult was it to get him on the show? And he said it was just fairly easy.
Yeah.
Which is, I have to be honest, has been my experience.
Well, it strokes the guest's ego, doesn't it? Like, I want you on my show. Would you be happy to come and talk to all these people that listen in? Yeah, I think it's quite easy.
Yeah. No, it is. It's true. You do. You stroke their ego. But authors especially are peculiar breed because they have to publicize their books. Part of the terms and conditions of the sale of the book, they have to do the marketing aspect of it. And so podcast is just, they can go back to their publishing company and say, I was on this podcast, and this podcast, and it looks like they're promoting. And so and podcasts are easy to do for like authors and people like that because they do them all the time. So they don't mind coming on 45 minutes and chatting. And if you're memorable in any way, then fantastic, you know? So yeah, don't be put off by getting high value guests. We recently had a guest on the show on e-commerce podcast called Neil Hoyne, who's the chief strategist at Google. He's an author, wrote the book Converted, which is a great book. And Neil, when you do a Google search, has appeared on a few podcasts, but you know, they've had tens of, like he was on the Future podcast and it was on the YouTube channel. I don't know how many tens of thousands of views it had. I'm like, I am small fry compared to these guys. But I heard Neil speak at an event, just reached out to him on LinkedIn and said, Neil, I heard you speak, loved what you had to say, would love for you to come on the show. And he's like, man, I'd love to. Did the same thing. Here's my PA. And you sorted out with them a date, didn't you, to get on the show. And for an hour, I had his undivided attention, which was marvelous. And I got to ask him all kinds. I learned so much just from that 1 hour with Neil. So, and in fact, Neil's gone on. He's like, Matt, I know some great guests great people who'll be great guests for your show. Do you want me to recommend them? I'm like, of course I do, yes, please. And so he's now introducing us to a few other of these amazing guests as well. So you can use your podcast as a vehicle to go and
Can I just add though, in case anyone's looking in the archives for this interview, it hasn't been published yet.
Oh, that's true actually. Which episode is going to get published first? This one or the one on EP?
This one.
So if you want to check out my conversation with Neil Hoyne on the e-commerce podcast, you can't.
Yeah. Just wait a few weeks. Or just keep checking in every week.
Just keep checking in now with the e-commerce podcast. Unless you're a member of the e-commerce cohort, in which case you can get access to it early. But that's a different story. But yes, do check out that one with honestly, genuinely fascinating conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. We talked about all kinds of things, mainly about customers. And how to use data to figure stuff out. And one of the great quotes from Neil that I remember him using both on the podcast and his talk, he said, imagine, you may have heard this story. He said, imagine you go into a bar and there's a guy that goes into a bar and you see him come into the bar and he just literally goes around to all the girls one by one saying, excuse me, would you marry me? He says it's a bit crazy. I mean, he's going from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in an instant. It's gone from, I don't know you to let's get married. And of course, everyone's going to say no. But his whole thesis is we pretty much do this as marketeers. We meet people we don't know and say, excuse me, would you like to buy our stuff? And there's this whole chasm of stuff in between, which kind of go, well, I don't know you. I don't know if I like you. I don't know if I trust you, which is what Dennis talked about last week. And so, yeah, Neil digs into that a little bit. Don't be that guy. And podcasting is a great way to not be that guy. Yes. I just want to point that out.
To bridge that chasm.
To bridge that chasm. But do check out the episode with Neil Hoyne, which will be coming out in a few weeks' time from this one. I don't actually, do you know the date?
I don't have the date.
No, it's on the system. I'm
going to say November.
November 23. Okay. And if it's not, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah. You can send me an email.
Google's chief strategist is on the phone.
Yeah.
So excuse me. Hello. Brilliant. Anything else from that conversation with Adam?
No, that's all my notes.
Well, we've got more conversations with Adam coming up.
We do. Next
so
one.
what's the next one about?
The next one is Adam Pierce again.
Dun, 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 dun.
And he is talking about the importance of having a genuine dialogue with your guest and pulling out great stories in the...
Bit like you're
while
doing
having a great conversation.
Okay, so one more time, just so we actually understand what Adam is talking about next time.
He's talking about the importance of having... He's talking about the importance of having a great conversation and while doing that, pulling out some great stories.
Fantastic. So we've got that next week. Make sure you subscribe to the show to get access to that. We would love to see you there. And of course, if you want to see the full interview with Adam, do check out Pod Junction Cohort. Anything else from you?
No, I'm good.
You sure?
Yes.
I'm just not that sure at all. But that said, have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode at Pod Junction, where business meets podcasting. If you enjoyed the insights from today and wish to hear the full conversation with today's special guest, don't forget to visit thepodjunction.com, where you'll find more information about how you can join today. Whether you listened while on the go or in a quiet moment, thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Remember, every episode is a chance to gain insights and to transform your business with podcasting. So keep tuning in, keep learning, and until next time, happy podcasting.